We will now start the JAIA webinar, The Name of the Sea of Japan and Flaws with Korean Arguments. Today we have Professor Masao Shimojo, Professor Emeritus at Takushoku University and visiting professor at Tokai University and the University of Shimane. And he will be using a wide array of maps, documents, and charts and show the flaws in the Korean arguments about the name of the Sea of Japan. And at the start, we would like to hear from Mr. Sotaro Ozaki, who is Director of Research Coordination at the Japan Institute of International Affairs. Good afternoon, participants to this webinar. As has been introduced, I am the Director of Research Coordination at the Japan Institute of International Affairs, and my name is Sotaro Ozaki. And today, thank you very much for participating in this open webinar, The Name of the Sea of Japan and Flaws with the Korean Arguments, and representing the organizer, the Japan Institute of International Affairs, I'd like to say a few words. From fiscal year 2017, we have started a program taking up issues regarding territory, sovereignty, and history, and have conducted various research projects and symposiums. And in the webinar today, we will be hearing from Professor Emeritus of Takushoku University, visiting professor of Tokai University and University of Shimane. And Professor Shimojo also had an open seminar in November last year titled The Essence of the Takeshima Islands Issue and Flaws with the Korean Arguments about Takeshima. And at the webinar today, we could say that this is like a sequel. And Professor Shimojo has researched the naming of the Sea of Japan for many years, and today Professor Shimojo will explain that the South Korean use of the name EC dates back to around 1946, and that it was not a remnant of Japanese imperialism as claimed by Korea. And using a wide array of maps, documents, and charts, he will explain the flaws of the Korean argument, basing his views on many years of researching this topic. And he will explain it in a very comprehensible way. And through this webinar today, I hope the understanding of the name of the Sea of Japan issue can be deepened. And with regards to Professor Shimojo in JAIA's programs, other than the name of the Sea of Japan, he has also written papers on the Takeshima Islands and Senkaku Islands. So those of you who have not read it as yet, please consult our website. And with regards to the webinar on Takeshima Island mentioned before, this can be viewed on the JAIA website. So with that, I would like to close my remarks. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we would now like to start the lecture by Professor Masao Shimojo, Professor Emeritus at Takushoku University and visiting professor at Tokai University and the University of Shimane, and we have a time for Q&A at the end. Therefore, please use the Q&A function on the bottom part of your screen. So, Professor Shimojo, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'd like to discuss with you the flaws of the Korean arguments on the name of the Sea of Japan, or EC. Between Japan and Korean Peninsula lies a Sea of Japan, and over the name of the Sea of Japan, among Japan, South and North Korea, the discord started back in 1992 at the time of the 6th UN Conference on the Standardization of the Geographical Names, or UNCSGN, where Republic of Korea and North Korea stated and raised an objection against the use of the Sea of Japan as the only name. And furthermore, in May in 1997, Korean government insisted that at the time of the 15th General Assembly of the International Hydrographic Organization, or IHO, the name Sea of Japan is the remnant of the Japan's imperialism, and therefore it should be renamed as EC or be put together with the name EC. Therefore, at this webinar today, I'd like to examine the arguments made by Korean side on the Sea of Japan as a name. This is the area called Sea of Japan. And on this matter, the reason why I started to be involved is also because of my personal motivation. In May 1997, at the time of the 15th General Assembly of IHO, Korean government stated that the name Sea of Japan is the remnant of the Japan's imperialism. And on the following month at the Press Center in Seoul, there was the international seminar for the use of standard name of the East Sea. And I had an opportunity to attend that seminar as an observer. And ever since that seminar and discussion there became the concern for me. And at the seminar, there were speakers from IHO and UNCSGN, namely Secretary General of IHO and the Chairman of the UNCSGN. And then a discussion, there was the Vice Chairman of the UNCSGN, or Vice President of UNCSGN. And ever since, when international seminars were sponsored by the Study Group on EC of Korea, the speakers from UNCSGN and IHO were invited. And therefore, I looked into the name of Sea of Japan, and the findings surprised me. That is about the argument by Korea that the name Sea of Japan is a remnant of imperialism of Japan. According to Koreans' argument, when limits of oceans and seas of IHO described the area as Sea of Japan, in 1929, Korea was under colonialism of Japan, and therefore, even when the name East Sea was used for 2,000 years, Korean was deprived of the opportunity to express its legitimacy, and therefore, their argument continues that either the Sea of Japan should be renamed as East Sea, or that it should be put together with the name East Sea. However, as a historical fact, the East Sea that used to refer to coastal waters of Korean Peninsula was extended to the Sea of Japan only after around 1946, when Korea was no longer under colonialism of Japan, as Japan was defeated in the war. And that is described on the East Asia Daily, or on June 15th of 1946. It states that the 6-month discussion over East Sea or Japan Sea. And as the textbooks on history and geography were going to be produced, there was a divergent view over the name to be used, whether it should be Sea of Japan or East Sea, and that triggered Korea to insist on East Sea instead of Sea of Japan. And thus, East Sea that you only refer to coastal waters started to be expanded and overlapped with Japan Sea or Sea of Japan, not since 2,000 years ago, but only after around 1946. And therefore, it had nothing to do with the remnant of the Japanese imperialism. And then, before 1946, in Korean Peninsula, how East Sea was understood or recognized. And there is some document that serves as a reference, which was published in 1915. The Painful History of Korea by Park Eun-sik.
And this is the book, and there it describes the geographical characteristic of Korea here, and it says Korea is a peninsular nation sticking out from Southeast Asia. Its borders are the Blue Sea and are separated from the Sea of Japan to the east. And Park Eun-sik says that along the east side of the peninsula lies Blue Sea, and outside the Blue Sea is the Sea of Japan. Then this Blue Sea, which sea area is it referring to? That is indicated in the July 1st, 1926 article of Dong-a Ilbo here. This portion. There, it says the East Sea, also known as the Blue Sea, a part of the Sea of Japan. So you have East Sea, Blue Sea, and its relationship with the Sea of Japan indicated. So according to the note of Dong-a Ilbo article, Blue Sea is another name for East Sea and is a part of the Sea of Japan. And this note is not in conflict with the description of the painful history of Korea. The Korean side has criticized that the name Sea of Japan is a remnant of Japanese imperialism, but the IHO, when it published the limits of ocean and seas around 1929, at the time, East Sea was a part of the Sea of Japan, and it was a name which referred to the coastal sea of the Korean peninsula. And in contrast, the Sea of Japan had already been adopted in the nautical charts of the UK and was an internationally established name. And in 1886, Kang-ei Sui-roshi literature, where it talks about the east coast of Korea, there is the sea area of the Sea of Japan, which is very similar to the sea area in the limits of oceans and seas. And this is the Kang-ei Sui-roshi, and it refers to the Sea of Japan here. So this Sea of Japan, the Korean side deems it to be a remnant of Japanese imperialism, and they use as the basis of their argument the Anguk Cheongdo, which was prepared around 18th century, and the Senjan Tongguk Yoji Sungnam, compiled in the 15th century. And using that as a basis, they have sought the rewriting to the East Sea. But as is clear by looking at the Anguk Cheongdo, this is the Anguk Cheongdo, the coastal area of Korean Peninsula. Here you see East Sea, and you also see the South Sea, and here it says East Sea Sahe. And in the East Sea in Anguk Cheongdo, well, this is the eastern coastal area, and the area outside that, it says Great Sea, and so you have the coastal waters and the high seas, which is distinguished. And it is an expression following this Shinjan Tongguk Yoji Sungnam, and is same for West Sea and South Sea. So if the East Sea of Anguk Cheongdo is the Sea of Japan, then the West Sea would be Yellow Sea and the South Sea would be East China Sea. However, the Korean side has not thought that the West Sea should be Yellow Sea and the South Sea should be the East China Sea. The East Sea in Anguk-cheongdo is a description of the coastal waters and not the Sea of Japan.
Then, why is that the name East Sea that used to refer to coastal waters was extended to the Sea of Japan, and that the name Sea of Japan is the remnant of the Japanese imperialism? Was back in 1970s when the Korean youth that were educated after the war went abroad for study, and they were infuriated to find out that East Sea was described as Sea of Japan at the countries that they went. And then they referred to the logic that the name East Sea has been used since 2,000 years ago. And they state that it is based upon the history of the three kingdoms and the new edition of the survey of the geography of Korea, or Shinjan Tongguk Yoji Sunyam. And here there is a description that states that the beach of the East Sea, according to the sage king Tongmyeon of the history of the three kingdoms, there is a name East Sea here, and that was interpreted as the Sea of Japan. And because the Kogryeo was established in BC 37, that is why they stated that it has been used since 2,000 years ago. However, the Kogryeo was located around the midstream of Yalu River, and when it was founded, it was not facing the Sea of Japan. And according to the Book of Later Han and the History of Three Kingdoms, the Chinese history books, there was Okcho between Kogryeo and Sea of Japan, which is also confirmed according to the history of the three kingdoms. The Kogryeo eventually defeated Okcho and reached the Sea of Japan at the time of the sixth King Taejo. The King Taejo, that was the sixth king since the sage king Donggyun. And according to the history of three kingdoms, they state that the Donggyun was at the east of the Kogryeo Kema mountain, and it was along the big sea on the east, and to the north it faced with Uro, Fuyo, and to the south there was Waihak. That's Waihak, Royo, and Fuyo around here. Thus, Kogryeo was not faced the Sea of Japan. And then, the side of the East Sea, according to the history of three kingdoms, which area did that history book refer to? To elucidate that, we can refer to description in Yeonbyo Shonga, which describes the foundation of Choson. According to that, in addition to East Sea, there is Bohai. So, in Choson, the Choson is located east of Bohai. And that is why we call ourselves as the state or nation east to the sea. And in Korean Peninsula, historically, they call themselves as Dongguk or the east of the sea. That is because they refer to the East Sea in China, and Korean Peninsula is located in the east of China, as in the case of Dongguk Yoji Shoran. And thus, when there is East Sea in the literature in Korean Peninsula, we have to consider two possibilities. In fact, according to Lee Sugan, in Jihong Yusel, East Sea of China, which is the West Sea of ours, or Korea, thus 4 seas are specified according to China. Thus, for East Sea, there is one East Sea for China, and then there is another East Sea for Korea.
So, when we interpret the beaches of the East Sea in Samguk-sagi, we have to interpret keeping in mind 2 East Seas. Then, the East Sea in the beaches of the East Sea, where was it? According to the Hohanshu and Sangguozi, that is the Chinese history books, it becomes very clear. Koguryo, on the east side of the Liaojiang Peninsula, was founded on the midstream of Yalu River. In the south is Chosun and Yemak, east Okcho, and it is facing Puyo to the north. And on the west side of Koguryo, there is no indication of a name. And there is an ancient book of China, Kaiyan, and it is cited in the history of Korea. And as is clear from this, the Yalu River flows southwest, goes to the mouth Anpei City, and then enters the sea. And the Yalu River flows into the East Sea of China, not the Sea of Japan. Therefore, from 2000, this East Sea in Samguk-sagi, which is said to have been used from 2,000 years ago, is not the Sea of Japan, but the East Sea of China. Also, the East Sea in Palto Cheongdo in the Shinjin Dongguk Yoji Sungnam is interpreted as the Sea of Japan by the Korean side, but that was also not connected to the Sea of Japan here. The Korean side, they show the Palto Cheongdo of Dongguk Yoji Sungnam, and there's the East Sea and the West Sea and the South Sea indicated. And actually, what is the East Sea? Well, in the afterword of Shinjin Dongguk Yoji Sungnam, it reads that the comprehensive map is in the beginning of the book is a record of sacred peaks, famous mountains, and large rivers. In other words, what is indicated in Palto Cheongdo is the locations that is in the ritual codes, where state rituals took place. And the East Sea there indicates the location of the Donghae Shrine. And in the text of Shinjin Dongguk Yoji Sungnam, it says that location is Yangyang in the Gangwon province. So this is the Gangwon province, and there's a place called Yangyang. And in Korea, the location of the Donghae Shrine. And the Issei that is indicated there was interpreted to be the Sea of Japan, but the Palto Chongdo also records Namhae or South Sea and Seohae or West Sea. And in the East Sea, West Sea, South Sea of Angkok Chongdo referred to earlier. So, as I was saying, so this is, well, you have the Angkok Chongdo map, and you see here, East Sea, Donghae, and Namhae, and South Sea, and Seohae or West Sea, and it's the same thing. So the South Sea and East Sea in Palto Chongdo is referring to the South Sea Songhae Shrine, and also for the West Sea, the Seohae Shrine, and so that location is indicated. And right now, in those locations, is rebuilt the East Sea Sanctum and the South Sea Sanctum, and the Palto Chongdo East Sea, which records the location of Donghae Shrine, it cannot be deemed to be the Sea of Japan. And the ritual codes are derived from the tradition of state rituals of China. And in Guangzhou of China, here, this is the South Sea Sanctum and the East Sea Sanctum, and here, this is in Guangzhou of China, and it is the Namhae Sanctum, the South Sea Sanctum. In other words, the old building has remained. So, despite this, Korean government since 1992 has said that the name of the Sea of Japan is a remnant of Japanese imperialism, and in the arena of the UNCSGN and IHO, they have sought the rewriting of East Sea to Japan, Sea of Japan to East Sea, or to record them side by side. And in 2014, in Virginia of the United States, there was a East Sea bill that was passed, which says that when you indicate the Sea of Japan in public textbooks, you have to also indicate the East Sea. So that means that the children in Virginia and surrounding states will assume that the name Sea of Japan is a remnant of Japanese imperialism, and they would be learning erroneous history. The East Sea and Sea of Japan movement that was started by the adults is such that historically the name of the coastal sea of the Korean Peninsula, that is the East Sea, is distorted as the Sea of Japan and has led to confusion in the international community. And this is a tragedy which was caused by the fabrication of history, which began around 1946. Also, in the UNCSGN and the IHO, there are persons who blindly follow this kind of false history. And if you look at the international seminar of the Society for EC and look at the participant list, you can confirm who they are. Without basing on historical fact, the perception of history brought about by ethnic feelings will, without purpose, create history issues and only lead to misunderstanding and prejudice. As was the case for the Takeshima Island issue, a webinar I conducted earlier, the confrontation between Japan and Korea over the name of the Sea of Japan is another such example. In the webinar today, with regards to the name of the Sea of Japan, I have clarified through the historical facts that it is the flaw of the Korean government to say that the Sea of Japan name is a remnant of Japanese imperialism. And I'm a bit early, but I would like to stop here. And I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Shimojo. We'd like to now begin Q&A session. We are now asking for your questions. You can use the Q&A function that appears at the bottom of the screen. The first question is going to be introduced. Professor Shimojo, thank you very much for a very informative explanation. You mentioned that in 1992, when the delegations of both South and North Korea raised their objection to the name Sea of Japan, it was in 1992. So are they working or cooperating together on this matter? Yes. When it comes to historical issue, this is considered as the good diplomatic means to work against Japan. And they take the same stance or position when it comes to such issues. And that is still maintained even today. Thank you, Professor Shimojo.
Next question. You talked about the area, which is an open sea, and that Korea is asking for the renaming. And with regards to the Sea of Japan only, why are they asserting this without referring to the West Sea or South Sea? And in the academic circle of Korea, is there a discourse that says that this should be the case? And is that reaching the Korean government? The Korean side, with regards to the East Sea, another reason they are taking it up is that in the Sea of Japan, there is Takeshima Island, and since 1954, they have legally occupied the island, and therefore that Takeshima is in the Sea of Japan, and they say the name of the island is Dokdo, and so if that Dokdo is in the Sea of Japan, then it doesn't sound like their territory. They want to change to the East Sea because of that, so that they can also assert the sovereignty over Dokdo. And so the Sea of Japan and Takeshima Island issue are, you could say, connected. And so from the viewpoint of the Korean side, because of Takeshima, South Sea and West Sea, well, they don't have territory issues there, so they have this abnormal interest in only the East Sea. That's in the background.
Thank you, Professor Shimojo. I'd like to move on to the next question. Was there any precedence or any cases where there was a discord among countries, the member countries, over the name of the particular region at IHO? How was it resolved? Well, I have not attended all those meetings of IHO and the UN CSGN, but it appears that it is only Korea that raise a question about the name of a particular region. And as I mentioned earlier, it is intentionally related or connected with the Takeshima issue. And also, the situation is slightly different in the case of the issues that involve Korea, and therefore such a peculiar the characteristics are reflected in those issues.
Going to the next question. So the indication of East Sea and Blue Sea referred to the coastal waters of the Korean peninsula, and only the west side of the Korean peninsula is said to be the East Sea of the eastern side of the Sea in China. And if there is the indication that is not relevant to the Sea of Japan in the old literature, it seems they are just using certain literature conveniently. And with regards to the Takeshima issue, there is a dispute. And in the case of Korea, inconvenient assertions are not heard, you could say. So with regards to the Sea of Japan name, even if they know that it is not the East Sea, they have continued to assert that the Sea of Japan should be the East Sea, and I expect that that will continue. And actually recently, IHO, with regards to the Sea of Japan name issue, sole indication was decided, and the Korean side wants to disseminate this view, to write them side by side. And so they have this kind of information offensive. And so in that sense, with regards to the historical issue, if there is no specialized organization to discuss this with the Korean side, they will continue to make this assertion. And so there has to be rebuttal each time Korean side makes their assertion, and I think such research should take place. Therefore, if it's inconvenient to the Korean side, they don't look at it, and therefore, unless Japan makes a clear rebuttal, they will continue to make the same kind of assertions and repeat the same argument. That's the tendency. So the Japanese side too, with regards to the history issue with Korea, when we think about that, we need to communicate information. We need to do that, but in order to communicate information, there has to be research conducted and continued on a daily basis, unfortunately, and this is also true for Takeshima. On the Japanese side, there are almost no researchers who continue to do this kind of research, and there is no research institute to do that too. So that in order to contain the argument of the Korean side, there has to be, and recently the word sustainable is a buzzword, but we don't have sustainable research on this matter in Japan, and by continuing the research, the flaws in their argument can be pointed out, and that will be essential going forward.
Thank you very much. Next question. The question of whether the Sea of Japan is really the remnant of colonialism, that could be examined by referring to the way the area was recognized and understood on the map throughout the course of the history. For instance, before colonialization, is there any map, the world map, where the Sea of Japan is described as East Sea? As I mentioned earlier, according to Eikan Chishi, during Meiji era, which was produced after its counterpart in UK, and that was toward the end of 18th century. Back then, the name the Sea of Japan was established internationally, and yet it was only after the war that the Korea started to recognize it, that it was the East Sea according to their history, and therefore whenever there is the name Sea of Japan, then they try to replace it every time they see the name Sea of Japan. Therefore, it is in a deductive manner that they state that the Sea of Japan has to be called East Sea, and they refer to literatures either in Japan or in Korea, and whenever they see the name Sea of Japan or East Sea, they seem to refer to the interpretation according to their discretion. Therefore, we have to have research capability that can counter-argue as such a position by Korea. Otherwise, we will see the recurrence of similar the issues over historical understanding on history with Korea or North Korea, whether it is the comfort women or the labor that was mobilized during the war. That was not such the human right type of issue is not related at all to the Sea of Japan or East Sea, and therefore there is a room or possibility that we can counter-argue then based upon the well-grounded the logic, and we should resort to international the gatherings whenever there is an opportunity to counter-argue their position. So we have to first understand their argument and then have to be able to counter-argue. Otherwise, it will not work.
Thank you, Professor Shimojo. And next question. So, the assertion of Korea is fabricated history. I could understand that. And this movement for EC, is it still continuing? And against this kind of movement, inclusive of information communication, what should Japan do? In the case of Korea, with regards to the name of the Sea of Japan, it is considered to be the East Sea issue in Korea. And in their case, when Shimane Prefecture set the ordinance for the day of Takeshima, 9 days before it passed, with regards to the Takeshima issue, they wanted to set up a research for sustained research, and that was in 2006 September, and it is a foundation, Northeast Foundation, and there Sea of Japan and Takeshima and comfort women and the worker conscription issues all are being researched, and there the head of the research institute, the president, are all the historians, and the status are like the ministers, and under the president there are about 100 staff members, and 60 are experts in history, and 40 are staff supporting them, and therefore in a sustainable manner Korea is doing research, and that is reflected in Korea's diplomacy. And so this history institute is acting as a policy recommendation institute, but unfortunately in Japan there is no think tank like that, and therefore the Korean side, well, they may continue to fabricate history, and they will put the history issue and use that as a diplomatic means, and that stance is completely different. And therefore, whether it be Takeshima or Senkaku Islands or the Northern Islands or the abduction issue of North Korea, the Japanese side is always put on the defensive, not the offensive, and therefore proactively, in order to solve this issue, the Japanese side has to be able to do the information warfare or that kind of research is necessary. And this is like a war where it's not going to use the military force. But what is important is that it's like a logistics for continuing the battle. You have to cultivate researchers. Instead of making missiles, it would be if you don't have the ammunition, you cannot continue the battle. So you have to have those means and then dispatch the information, but that's missing in Japan. So in terms of the history issue, I think it will continue with Korea. And how are we to stop this? Well, it has to do with Japanese political and diplomatic capabilities, but that is missing. And therefore, that has to be improved. And if we can do that, then the flaws of the historical perception in Korea could be overcome. Otherwise, the relationship between Japan and Korea will always be very negative, and it will be Russia and North Korea and China who will benefit. And therefore, with regards to the history issue and the name of the Sea of Japan and other issues, somehow direction to solve this has to be indicated by Japan. I think that's the timing, and I think it's really the last opportunity to do so. And so I hope that can be understood by my audience today. And actually, whether it be Takeshima or Senkaku or the Sea of Japan naming issue or the historical literature is not read in the correct way, and the Korea and China don't understand that they're not reading the literature in the right way, but they cannot correct that because there's no strong offensive from the Japanese side. And Korean by, for example, capitalizing on the Korean Americans. And in the case of Virginia, the Korean Americans played a central role, and they cooperate with the Congress members, and they appeal that the East Sea should be written side by side as the Sea of Japan. And centering on Virginia, the bill passed, and it has spread to about 7 other states. So this history foundation that I mentioned earlier is supporting this. And there's also the Society for East Sea, which is the geography experts, and also from the viewpoint of the Korean Americans, that is, you could say, doing the service to the country and contributing to the country, and that is contributing to anti-Japanese feelings. And Japan, if it cannot respond appropriately, then that will be attacked. And as you can understand from what I talked about today, the understanding of history issue of the Korean side is not grounded. However, the Japanese side could not debate this, and I think that lack of capability has to be taken into consideration.
We have covered all the questions that were raised. With this, I'd like to conclude today's webinar, which was entitled The Name of the Sea of Japan and Flaws with the Korean Arguments. To the audience today, thank you very much for your interest and participation. When you exit, the screen would be switched to the feedback screen. So if your time allows, please send your feedback to us. Thank you very much.